Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Dennison, Vice President, Midsize Enterprise Services with the Channel Company. Thank you so much for joining us today for our second live webinar. Today, joining me is Howard Holton. He's an analyst with GigaOm and an IT practitioner with Rheem Manufacturing. Howard, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Adam. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. Today's webcast is going to be on low code, as you can see, delivering the business case for low code. Low code is something that's been very popular right now in the mid-market. We had our MES Fall event back in September in Dallas, and there was a session on low code that was very well attended. So we hope that you'll get a lot out of this today. Before we get started, though, with Howard's presentation portion of it, just to give you a little bit more background in terms of Midsize Enterprise Services and who we are, if you're new to the channel. Just want to give you a little bit of background there. Again, we are part of the Channel Company, and Midsize Enterprise Services is made up of several offerings that we have. We've got 3 live events, which I'll share with you in a second, what those are around IT security, and then we have a spring and a fall live event. We also have our IT Leadership Network that we just launched back in the September timeframe. We have a monthly newsletter that's associated with all things MES, and we have our MES research that we do with our partners with GigaOm, with IDC, and other partners that we have out there as well. As you can see here, this is our 2022 lineup. I'm very happy to say that we are back fully live in March, in Q1, end of March, we'll be down in Tampa for our MES IT security event. That'll be followed up 4 weeks later. We'll be going right back down to Orlando for our MES spring event. Then we'll take a little bit of a time off, and we'll be coming back in September out in Vegas for our MES fall event. And then what we launched just back in September, again on September 19th, we launched our MES IT Leadership Network, which for all qualified IT leaders, it is a free offering to come in and stay connected with not only your peers, but our research partners such as Howard, as well as our content partners and our sponsor partners. So we really welcome you to go check out the MES IT Leadership Network and to send in your application. So just a little bit of housekeeping here before I flip it over to Howard to walk through our low code presentation. If you do have any questions, please go ahead in the Q&A section and put those in, and we'll get to those as best we can. If there's something that we don't get to, we will have a record of that and make sure that we get back to you, and Howard and I will connect off screen and make sure we get back to you there. So without further ado, let's get the webcast started. And Howard, take it away.
Great. So I'm Howard Holton. I'm CISO and Enterprise Architect at Rheem Manufacturing. I'm also an industry analyst with GigaOm. I've been doing this for 34-ish years. I produced my first piece of commercial software when I was 11. For those that are graybeards like me, you'll remember WordPerfect. It was a WordPerfect focused thing. I've served as CIO of a legal services company, built from the ground up, CTO of Hitachi Vantara, and now I'm at Rheem. We can go kick to the next slide. So for those who haven't heard of GigaOm, GigaOm is an analyst organization, similar in concept to Gartner and IDC and Infotech. One of the things that makes us different is we're 100% practitioner based. So I'm not unique in that I'm a working practitioner, but all of our research, our technical advisor, and our thought leadership all comes from people who are active participants, active practitioners in the industries to which they are providing that content. So it's not interview-based research. It's not academic-based research, but rather practical, hands-on, focused research where we attempt to answer the questions that we'd like someone to answer. So hopefully that applies more to our audience than some of the other content that we all get to see. All right, so let's get into low code. And before I start, digging into the slides, I really prefer to be interactive, right? I have slides because you're required to have slides, not because I feel that slides are the most valuable thing we bring to the conversation, right? The most valuable thing we bring to the conversation is us. So if you don't see something on the slide, if you've got a question, if you kind of want to dig in a little bit differently, feel free to raise a question. I'm happy to address those. I'm infinitely happier to have a discussion than just be a talking head. So just let me know. So effectively, when we look at the business case of low code. And that's kind of where we should start for all of this new stuff that we look at, right? We have a tendency to be a little bit technology for technology's sake, or technologists for technology's sake. And really, it doesn't do us wonders when we're trying to figure out where to spend our time. My approach, and the approach I recommend, is start with the business case. Right? How is the business going to get value out of the thing that we're going to do? So within low code, the kind of top benefits are productivity improvements, reduced development costs, and a tangible short-term ROI. Those are the things that we're looking for. Those are the things that we see in successful low code deployments. Scenarios, citizen development, that's the number one scenario, right? The goal isn't to make it easier for your software developer teams. The goal is to expand your software development teams by an exponential amount by enabling citizen development. Data integration and dashboards, right? You have to enable the citizens to get value from your data integration and dashboards and your BPA and your rapid prototyping. But as soon as you enable your citizens, data integration starts to be your number two scenario, right? Because what you're going to get is, I'd like to make a dashboard for this thing, but I don't know how to access the data for this thing. And so they're doing it manually. They're screen scraping, they're trying to do export data that they have, that sort of thing. Maybe they can figure it out, maybe they can't. So it'll be the number two scenario, the number two focus point. And then number three is really, now we're working with low code, now we've deployed it, now we've enabled our users, and we're really focused on BPA. That business process automation is where you get those productivity improvements. Right. And we see things like within HR, you're going to see like a 120% improvement. In finance, you'll see probably more like 160% improvement. As you look to departments where they have a lot of manual computer tasks, where they're moving data from one system into another, that's where low code really starts to shine, because your citizen developers understand how that workflow works and can logically think through what they'd like to get done. And that tends to be a key for winning. And then rapid prototyping, now we're rolling back more to your traditional software developers and giving them the tools necessary to present ideas and to really kind of move that agile methodology all the way through the development lifecycle. So when they have an idea and they'd like to pursue their kind of fail fast within agile, they can push a prototype out much, much faster than before, because the tools are so graphic oriented and so quick to develop, without having to worry about any back-end code to necessarily move strawman data around. So within those benefits and those scenarios, we kind of look at a 30, 60, 90-day plan in your startup of your business case, right? So the first is you do an assessment and level set, right? You identify a pilot. And honestly, the best way to start is with a small workshop. Gather people together and identify the things they wish they could get done but haven't been able to up to this point. Right? Don't look at what are the things you're planning to already do. What do you have budgeted for next year? What tooling do you already have in place, or do you plan on purchasing? Let's see if we can replace it. Let's talk about those things that you haven't figured out how to solve, and let's throw those up on the board. And then you look at, can we conceivably walk through how to do it? Can we create a timeline around it? And can I teach someone in the room how to build the workflow? That'll narrow down 4 or 5 things that you can then let the room decide, of those 4 or 5 things, what has the most global reach within the room. There, you've now identified your pilot, right? Identify tools and partners. That's first 30 days, right? What tools are you looking at and what partners are you looking at to help you enable it? And then establish your governance framework. And this is so critical, because you're going to enable your citizen developers, and you're going to have far more developers than you did before, and far more people who don't necessarily think first in a way that they're used to having governance controls placed on them. What does your governance look like? And your governance needs to be a deep enough touch that you're not enabling problems, while being a light enough touch that you're not scaring away citizen developers with too much bureaucracy, because governance ultimately comes out as a form of bureaucracy. And so we really want to see, how do we turn those dials so that we've just set the right balance between what compliance and governance requires without dissuading our users from participating. At 60 days in, now we're looking for business and IT buy-in. We're defining the process that we're going to go through with the business units. We're defining our cross-functional teams, and we're comparing tools and coming to a decision on tools. Remember, within 30 days, we're just identifying what tools are relevant to our situation, right? What partners do we have? Where are we already licensed? What can we lean on? What ecosystems, plural, do we want to belong to? At the 60-day point, now we're trying to make a decision on a single one, right? Now we're trying to decide what are our cross-functional teams start to look like? Who are our team members, both from within technology, within IT, and within the business that are going to participate in kind of the larger steering committees? And then at 90 days, we start doing training and KPIs. We review the line of business application pipeline, right? What are we looking at building? What came out of not only our pilot, but what were those things we didn't necessarily choose for a pilot, right? We start rolling up training for our citizen developers. And I would also caution that training's not one thing, right? Training must be thought of as a long-term program with different methods of training and content delivery, because not everyone learns the same way, not everyone learns at the same pace. And then you also need some way to measure the effectiveness of the training to the person. And then you want to establish metrics versus traditional development. If you fail to do that last step, then you're never going to really be able to build that benefit number 3, those tangible one-year ROIs.
Hey, Howard, I got a question for you. If I can just pause you here real quick. Can you talk a little bit more about the term citizen developer and how widely accepted that term is, both on the IT side, maybe with security as well, and then also from the business users?
For sure. So I actually think the first place that I saw it widely used was in citizen data scientist. It's been around for quite a while, but citizen data scientists really kind of brought it to the forefront. And honestly, the logic behind the term is exactly the same. And the logic is it's someone who has organic, non-formal training in whatever the task is, right? So you could think of it kind of as a non-professional in the skill set, right? Within the context of citizen development, they are someone doing development using these type of tools who do not do development as their primary job. That's a citizen developer. Someone in the general public, within, an employee within the business, who has another job and also takes on some light development within the context of these low-code, no-code tools. And for the purpose of this conversation, you could think of low-code tools and no-code tools as kind of the same basket of tools, right? You don't have to separate those two things into two separate programs, and I would advise that you don't. And the reality is, when you're looking at your citizen developers, I love this question, by the way, when you're looking at your citizen developers and you're trying to determine, are they a candidate for citizen development? It's very, very easy. It's far easier here than it is in any other field. And that is, how good are they at Excel? Right? If they're not really good at Excel and they just kind of use it as a place to store information, then no code is probably going to be the hurdle they're going to have to jump. However, if this is the Excel wizard within the business that really understands data modeling in Excel, as an example, or when you take a look at their formulas, you kind of have to move them over to Notepad or some other tool and start to break them down so you can follow the logic. You've got a really good candidate for no-code and low-code tools, right? Those are, and that's really where I would spend my time in that first 90-day training for citizen developers, right? And that's probably the same people I would look for to really feed into my cross-functional teams. I want to look for who are the heroes within the business that I'm going to be able to create. And those heroes are defined by the people best at Excel for a couple of reasons. One, they're going to be the most successful right out the gate. Their minds already think that way, whether they realize it or not. So they're going to be the most successful right out of the gate. They're going to get the fastest ROI, and they're likely already going to be able to think about how they can use the tools to gain some improvement. If they're that advanced at Excel, adding low-code tools will just increase their performance within Excel by giving them a whole new toolbox to play in. Secondly, because they're going to get up to speed and they're going to show results faster than any other group, they're going to play into your ROI and make the whole project raise in value to the business. Plus, if you celebrate those heroes as part of the program, everyone wants to be a hero. And let's be honest, when we roll out a new tool, people just go, okay, cool, IT just delivered this new tool. When Jack in the cube next to you, or Bonnie in the cube 2 doors down that you have lunch with every other week says, holy crap, you should see this new thing I built, Now everyone listens. Everybody wants to be a hero. And the fact is, they trust their peers more than they trust IT in making them a hero. So really look for who are your ideal citizen developers? How do I promote them? How do I focus on them? And how do I enable them first and fastest? It's a fantastic question.
Got it. I love that you're using Excel there. I can tell you then that at the channel company, our CEO would be a rock star citizen developer. he's very advanced at Excel. So with that, then, are there specific departments that you see, BUs that you see gravitate and ramp up faster? I just think of finance right now because they're constantly in spreadsheets.
So universally, finance and HR have a lot of potential for value within the low code, no code area, right? If I look to HR is a really good example. When they do onboarding, I like to think that the onboarding experience is integrated across all the various systems that HR uses. If it is not, it's a perfect place for low code and no code tools, right? If you think of like the differentiator between low code and no code, low code is an amazing data mover, right? The kind of three leaders there, Microsoft Power Automate, UiPath, and Blue Prism, fantastic data movers. And so there I'm looking at how do I enter the information about the new hire one time and make sure that it's replicated across all these systems very quickly. I'm going to show a huge improvement that's going to scale directly with my onboarding. Right? Where is my change management? How do I do user validation? That tends to be one that's a big problem, especially if you've got a large organization with a large number of employees that are not computer savvy necessarily, right? So HR is a great place to start. The other one is finance, because finance does a ton of reporting and finance does a ton of moving information from one system to another. Likely more than anyone else, right? Even within the same system, they still may manually be moving data, right? And so empowering those two groups tends to be the best place to start. Now, the challenge and why you may not want to do that is depending on when you're doing your deployment and what the time requirements are, they may also be extremely overburdened. And so getting them to come up for air may be complicated. I promise if you host a small value engineering workshop to determine what your pilots are, you're going to immediately see where the instant value is. And that's where I would concentrate in my first, say, 120 days, right? The 30 days after my 90 days. Because identifying those things and being able to create that hero in your organization will get everyone to jump back to the table and go, okay, we've cleared up a bunch of time, now we want in. Right? And within your own organization, as you start to see how these tools work, you'll very quickly be able to identify within your organization places where you already see value.
Another question for you as well here, and this stems from the session that we held at MES Fall. And as you know, we're laser focused on the mid-market, right? And so that session was run by a practitioner, CIO of a mid-market organization, talking about their experience with low code. And he brought up the 3 Bs. He brought up backlog, budget, and bandwidth, all of which in the mid-market you can have some serious issues with and concerns with. Can you talk a little bit about those 3 areas, and specifically in the mid-market versus, say, a heavier enterprise, and where those challenges and constraints might occur? And is low code, no code more ripe for a mid-market organization than an enterprise, a heavy enterprise, or they can both benefit the same?
No, I would argue that low code, no code is far more valuable in the mid-market. Citizen developers are far more valuable in the mid-market, where my whole development team in a mid-market company might be 8 people, right? My backlog, so my company is effectively mid-market, right? Our software development backlog might as well be infinite, right? Because I don't have enough developers to deal with the backlog. And a lot of the backlog can be solved with low-code, no-code tools and enabling citizen developers, right? And so as we start to enable those within business units, and we're taking a very kind of slow and pragmatic approach to how we do the deployment, we're starting to see huge gains in reducing that backlog, because the things that were on the backlog, the citizen developers are starting to remove, right? And all of a sudden, citizen development enables what I would call good enough results. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not creating software for my customers. I'm not creating software for the web with citizen developers. That tends not to not to be where I'm applying it, right? I'm not creating a new site that I'm publishing out to all of my customers where I expect them to go do order entry or something like that, right? That's, even if I use low code for that, I'm going to do that in my software development area, right? The product manager that owns that's going to use that, and it's going to be just a new tool set for them. But within internal and all those internal requests that my software team gets to solve real problems that exist, people are picking up on that within the company and deploying solutions that are good enough. They probably wouldn't have passed muster had we run them as a traditional software development project, but they're doing them in weeks instead of months. And it's good enough, so it removes it from the backlog, which means we can focus on the things that are, I would say, more pressing or more, that do require, in fact, hardcore software developers.
Got it. I have a question came in from one of our CIOs. It's a little long. I'm just going to try to condense it here. Some of the concerns that this gentleman has over the line of business control over configuration, code and configuration maintenance with IT standards. So the question really is around, he'd like to talk about the hurdles that line of business could have before placing into production a configure code change.
Okay, so that's where governance really starts to become important. And it try to go to the next slide. I'm not sure if it's on the next slide. Sure. I only have like 3 or 4 slides total. One of my slides talks about, go to the next slide. Okay, go back. So it's on this slide where when I'm talking about licensing and risk, right? One of the risks is those last 2 bullets: security is not baked in, and governance versus sprawl. And that's kind of what you've touched on in your question. And my answer to that really is, where IT is involved is in what is traditionally called a term I do not like and do not support, but it's centers of excellence. I really prefer the term centers of innovation, right? The goal there is that's where your governance kind of moves and lives and sits, but it's also where corporate assistance sits to provide support to the low-code, no-code efforts. It's also where you bubble things up for deployment to the rest of the organization. Most low-code, no-code lives within the groups that it has created and ultimately solves the problem for the group that it has created. But you're going to find a ton of those things that 2 or 3 or 4 groups are trying to solve. And so it's beneficial to roll those up and say IT is now going to take a hand, not the only hand, but a hand in governing and managing those tools. And that's where a center of innovation comes from. The reason I prefer innovation over center of excellence is because we're working with citizen developers. And what we're trying to do is say, bring us your ideas, bring us your innovation. Any innovation is good enough. What comes out of this, we want to be excellent. What comes into it, what you bring to it, the barrier for entry is incredibly low. Could be just ideation, right? And if we say center of excellence, then what we tell our employees, what we tell the citizen developers is, it must be excellent to come to the center. Rather than, what we're really trying to say is, we're striving for excellence within the center. But if we call it the center of innovation, hey, I have an innovative thought. I thought of something this morning in the shower. We all did. Bring me that, right? Bring me what you've worked on. Bring me what you considered good enough. Let's see if that applies to other people. And then that's where we start applying a little bit more of that traditional software development kind of work, right? And say, here's where we develop our backlog. Here's where we determine what we're now going to spend additional time on, where we're going to provide support, and what does become more of a supported low-code, no-code outcome versus a non-supported low-code, no-code outcome. You want to enable both, but you want to be very cautious in how you're able to do it. And the only way that you can actually scale is to build something like a center of innovation. It's a fantastic question.
What you just touched on has a follow-up question here as well, then, around, everyone loves the term shadow IT, right? And you just sort of touched on that there. Like, what is, do you typically see when low code gets introduced into an environment, does that help reduce that shadow IT? Does it encourage it?
No. So okay. So I think the term shadow IT, I mean, ultimately we need to own it. We need to own the responsibility for shadow IT, right? Shadow IT is the business attempting to solve a problem that IT isn't solving. That's what they're doing. And we need to own the responsibility for putting the people in a position where they feel like that's their choice. That's their only choice. And some default to it, and you're never going to solve it, right? Some don't default to it and find it's a piece of frustration. These type tools really, really help alleviate that frustration. Now I've given you a tool set that you can use to solve the problems that you're likely trying to solve with Shadow IT. Not all of them, but a very big portion of them. You are now enabled to solve the problems yourself. And if we look back to that first 30 days, I haven't just chosen a tool, I've chosen a partner and a training platform. Mm-hmm. So here are places that you can utilize to get answers. And since my partners are part of my center of innovation, my partners also understand how to work with my business. And if my business units can easily fund those partners, as long as they're an approved partner, those partners will work within the governance standards that we've set. That's part of that early work, right? That's part of the governance. That's part of the center of innovation creation, right? So now I've enabled them, I've given them tools necessary to get the job done. I've given them an ecosystem, very robust ecosystem to find the answers that they need. And it's a place they can turn to that's faster than any approval process in the world other than swiping a credit card. And frankly, because they have an ecosystem, they're motivated to not swipe a credit card because here they can get support and they know they're on their own. Yep. Right? Again, it doesn't solve the problem, but it definitely reduces some of the concerns that cause Shadow IT and brings those back into the fold. Now, you also are in a position where IT is going to have an awful lot less control over what gets produced. You're going to have a lot less control over how the tools get used. That's not a bad thing. That's just where you start to define these are supported versus unsupported. This water line, everything above it, we support. Everything below it is kind of the wild, wild west. And all we really want to do is make sure that our governance and compliance controls are followed.
Got it.
Now, I know everyone's been staring at this screen for several minutes now. I know you all have read it, right? And these really are the risks and challenges. This slide is absolutely worth you seeing. So very first, licensing is complex and hard to compare. All of the vendors, they really don't do a good job of giving you the ability to do a one-to-one comparison. It's why a partner does become important. Someone that can help assess where you are and where you want to go can help suggest the right low-code and no-code tools for you. External users, if you're going to publish content to people outside your organization, require licensing, and they require licensing different than those inside your organization require. You may be fully licensed inside the organization and still require additional licensing to publish to anonymous users or users external to your organization. And then there are multiple levels of licensing, most of which do require additional cost. So really taking time to fully understand how your options are licensed and how that licensing will affect you is very, very important. And again, it's why I do recommend partners, right? And again, enabling citizen developers, you really kind of need to figure out how do we enable that center of innovation to also help deal with sprawl and abandonware, right? Because you're going to get a lot of it. So what is your policy on cleanup? What is your policy on management of that, right? And then risk. Integrations and cloud costs. Those are definitely risks. When you start allowing users the ability to create additional data, move data from one place to the other, is going to create data in that new location, right? You need to pay attention to what you're allowing and how you're managing that, because you could see massive increases in your integrations or cloud costs, depending on how those things are licensed. You do have training and change management. Those things are critical and cannot be skipped. Security is not baked in, so your governance is really, really critical. I'm going to stop there because I'm not reading, but I've seen some pop-ups, so I want to make sure if there's questions, I get to answer them.
Yeah, let me, one question here is, who do you have to hire? Or make sure you've got on your team to make sure that this is successful? Is it architects? What do you have to do to make sure that your low code initiatives are going to get the most out of them? If they're not already on your team, who do you need to look at to hire?
Yeah, so surprisingly, the best people to hire are the same people that you would hire for data science practices, and they're not data scientists, right? The best people are people that can think programmatically for the business. So you're really looking for those architects. You can call them software architects, enterprise architects. That's kind of what you want. And you want enough of them that they're able to manage the business relationships to some level, I wouldn't start with more than one. I really wouldn't in any way, shape, or form. Then honestly, I would start junior software developers there. That would be my immediate next hire would be 1 or 2 software developers that have a product portfolio. I'm not one of those people that believes everyone should come from the university path. I think there's multiple paths to knowledge, but a solid portfolio of products, or have a 4-year degree, one or the other or both is great, right? That are looking at, say they have 3 years or less experience, that'd be a fantastic place for them. They've got the mindset, they've got the ability to work with the tools. They're going to look at the tools and almost immediately know how to use them. And you really want to look in the interview for those soft skills. How would they talk to a user is far more important than how they would manage the tool set. I hope that answered the question. I'm trying to keep my answers kind of concise because I know I think we're running out of time, right?
No, this was scheduled for the full hour, so we've got plenty of time.
Oh, well, fantastic. Then we got plenty of time.
Did you want to expand more on that or not?
Yeah. So then my third.
Okay.
Honestly, after I had a couple of software developers, I probably wouldn't invest any more software developers. Now I'm looking for business analysts. Now I'm looking for people that can really look at a business process and help determine where is it inefficient and start identifying the use cases for low code, no code, and start working with users who do the actual work and go, hey, would it be easier if you did it this way? Let's think about business process programmatically, and let's make the investment there. Those like 3 layers complete your center of innovation team. They complete your low code, no code team if you were to dedicate a team to it, and they're going to see the most value returned. I also, the value to a kind of center of innovation is you really only have one person that stays at the center of innovation, and that's that architect, right? Everyone else, you can actually use the center of innovation as a place to flow people through. And it becomes a really interesting way to say, we want to expand the software development team. However, bringing on new software developers that don't understand our organization, they don't know how the business works, is always painful, right? And we'd really like the opportunity to say, go 1 senior and then do 3 juniors, and 1 senior and do 3 juniors, and kind of do that balance. But getting value out of those juniors is always hard in the development cycle that we're in, right? This is a great place to go. What we're going to do instead of throwing them into our traditional software development groups and then try to mentor, mentee them to get value out of them, we're going to take them and we're going to move them into the center of innovation. We're going to let them work inside the business, work directly with the business users, and really understand what the needs of the business are and how the business operates for 12 to 18 months. And then we're going to cycle them out and bring in another group to do the same thing. Right? So they get to learn, they get all the travel knowledge, they get a far better understanding of how the business operates, and they get to build relationships within the business while they're coming up to speed in how you operate and how you work, making them infinitely easier to then move into your traditional software development teams and work on more long-term, larger projects using traditional tools while bringing the value of all of that along with them. It's infinitely better if you can manage that kind of cycle. And there's nothing that says you have to cycle them out. What you're likely to find is there's a tremendous amount of work, and you're able to produce a tremendous amount of results within this kind of work cycle.
Got it. Can I move on here?
Yeah. Are there no more questions in the chat?
Not right now. I think there's some coming through here.
Fantastic. So one of the things that we've done is we have a series of documents that we've built on low code, right? So a Gigabrief, which really is kind of a high level why you would do low code within your organization. We have a case study that looks at a customer that's deployed low code and what the results are that they've got. A radar, which shows who the low code participants are and kind of where they sit in the market. And then a key criteria for how you would evaluate low code tools. So these are the 4 documents we have on low code today. All 4 of them are free. These QR codes link to them. Otherwise, the links are right there. Tried to make it as easy as we could to get to them. you're welcome to grab them from the next 90 days, or sorry, 30 days. I don't have any further slides.
Talk a little bit about the market, the vendor market. You don't have to name names. I know you named a couple earlier, but is it a crowded market out there that you're seeing right now? Is it a mature market? And really think about it from a mid-market perspective. Are there plenty of players out there for these folks to choose from, or is that a limited offering out there?
So within no code, it's a kind of a crowded market. Within low code, I think there's a ton of options. And I don't know that I would say that there's any one or two or three that's a clear winner, to be honest. Within no code, there's kind of three extreme leaders. And the way I would think about it, because they each kind of have a position within that market, is the evolution of your user, right? So if I look at Microsoft Power Automate is absolutely a market leader within no code, and where it's best is your newest users, your least mature users, your least kind of software-y users, your kind of mid-tier, maybe Excel, right? So your starters. It is a fantastic option for those companies that are using Office 365. There's a ton of pre-built connectors for all of the Office 365 components and a ton of other things. For those that are familiar with If This Then That, IFTT, you could think of it very similar to how you would build workflows in that. It's extremely click-through and fantastically easy to use. Then as we move up, you move into kind of UiPath and where UiPath sits, right? And so now you have a combination of click-through, and you start adding your own code. And as a mid-step, you start adding a little bit more of the crunchiness that you would get in those heavy Excel formulas. And then finally, we move into Blue Prism, and Blue Prism is a great way to connect low code with some more. Now we're starting really to get into low code. And within Blue Prism, I would really be looking at that innovation team that I talked about, where you do have a couple of developers, because that's where you're really going to start plugging in custom code to drive into Blue Prism to get some of the results that you're looking for. Within low code, it gets a whole lot more splintered. I don't think there's anyone that has the kind of hold on the market that those three vendors do. And I don't know that there's any big player that I would say, yeah, that's the one. There's a lot of maturing still to be done in there. And honestly, what I would do in that case is I would look to the partners that you have and say, this is what we're looking at, and look for those that have built their own practice around those tools, so that you walk into an ecosystem at some place that you're familiar with.
Got it. Another couple questions coming through here. One, this is a great question, I think. Do you have, I think they're talking about you at Ream. So put your practitioner hat on here, Howard.
Yeah.
Do you have a low code user group in your organization that you meet with regularly? If not, how do you interact with them regularly?
So with all of these projects, there's two different things that I do. One, I like committees, kind of. So yes, I have a committee for these things. It's more of a steering committee than a practitioner committee. So it's a little bit, committees can be a little bit bureaucratic. And then we use our chat tool, our corporate communication tool. So we use Teams. And those are kind of the two things that we use. The main reason is, without the steering committee, we're missing a bit of governance, right? And we're missing communication at kind of the business owner level, which needs to be delivered. And then everything else can be dynamic. Who needs to talk to who? How do we communicate? How do we work on these things? I do organize summits, right? Put people in a room. That's been very, very hard during COVID. And very large Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, whatever, are questionably valuable. But as we move kind of back to whatever real life looks like, we'll get back to having in-person kind of rolling quarterly summits where we'll meet in person. We'll go to a large office. Those that can travel and are willing to travel will. We'll broadcast and record. We'll meet in person. We'll whiteboard. We'll do training from one of our training partners. Bring in new content. Bring up things that have been working and kind of socialize them. Right. So this is our kind of hero promotion period, as you know, I would kind of look at. Sometimes those are half a day, sometimes they're 2.5 days. It just kind of depends on what the pace and activity's been.
Got it. This is a kudos to you, essentially. Gentleman says he's been doing low code for about 15 years now. He says you've hit all the key main points and the gotchas right on the head. Then he followed it up. It's not necessarily a question, but maybe you can talk about this a little bit. It says one issue that we do have is duplication between departments. So what's your take on that as a potential pitfall?
So it's absolutely a pitfall, and I kind of talked about it a little bit in the Center of Innovation discussion, right? You're going to get a lot of duplication. The best way to solve it is with that Center of Innovation, because the goal of the architect is really to look at, these are the things being produced, and I see them being produced in multiple places. I see people trying to solve the same problem. If they start with innovation and not excellence, then you'll have those departments coming and saying, hey, I wish there was a way to do this, right? And someone else will go, I think I've already solved that within my department. Oh, cool, can I build on that? And as they start doing that communication, the role of that architect is to look at that and go, okay, cool, I now have 2 departments. Now I need to do some sort of official communication and say, hey, I'm seeing this used by multiple groups. How many of you think this is valuable? And in what way is this valuable? Right? These are the problems that are solved within it. These are the things I think we could solve with it. Is this something that we should invest our time in? And then we look to those junior devs to get involved and kind of start to take a little bit more ownership of it. The big challenge is you can only do that if you take ownership. If you don't take ownership of it, you can't leave ownership of a tool used by 3 different finance departments in one finance department. Right? That never works. They're going to focus on the thing that's important for them rather than the thing that's important globally.
Got it. Another question I have is around DevOps. How does low code and DevOps coexist? What are some of the primary differences between the two, and how do they work together?
So, other than the level of technicality required, I don't put them in the same bucket at all.
Okay.
Right. It's a really good, like turning low code, no code over to your IT department is a really good way to identify those people that are naturally good at thinking about infrastructure as code. Right. And an IAC program is a protracted, somewhat difficult program to do until you really have done a capabilities assessment and determined who are those IAC practitioners that kind of have a natural tendency for it. Starting with low code, no code, IT is a fantastic place. I hope no one took me saying HR and finance being great places for low code, no code means I don't think IT is. I think IT by far is number one. But when we're looking at low code, no code, the point is the citizen developer, right? The point is to get it out into the business away from us. But within IT, start looking for those people who are really grabbing these tools and using them to overcome problems within IT. You will immediately see those people that you need to focus on if DevOps is a direction that you're going, and I really hope that it is. And IAC, infrastructure as code, is a place that you're going. Starting here is a great place to identify those who have the capabilities that you may not be able to measure in their Python knowledge, right? Because that kind of is what we look at. Hey, have you used any of these tools? No. Okay. Are you any good at PowerShell and Python? No. Okay, moving on. And then we move on to the next person to do their capabilities assessment. But if we start by empowering people with low code, no code tools, and then look at who are our biggest contributors, who are the people that have immediately identified themselves as kind of thought leaders in helping our citizen developers, right? Then we can also go, okay, likely if I invest in those people within the tool sets that they need to get to for DevOps and IAC, I'm going to find that they're leaders there too.
Got it. I have no further questions here, Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be able to end a little bit early. And those links were up there. And they go to this link too. Where does this one bring you, Howard? Does it bring you straight to GigaOm?
No, I think, you know what, I'm not honestly sure. I put that link up there a while ago. I think it might actually be my LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it probably is
it's my
because you got
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn right there. Perfect. So everyone go get
So if you
connected
want
with
to get a hold
Howard.
of me, if you got any more questions, if you just want to kind of chat, I'm on LinkedIn probably more than I am on email. I know that sounds awful, but yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. Honestly, like, you have me for 15 more minutes. I am an industry analyst. I've been doing this for a long time. If you've got questions about absolutely anything, I'm happy to open it up and dig in.
See any other questions come through? I'll let folks think about that as I kind of close out. Just to reiterate what we're doing here again. If you're not familiar with MES Midsize Enterprise Summit, we are going to have 3 live events next year. Again, starting right out of the gate when we get everyone gets back from the holiday breaks. We'll be down in Tampa with our IT security event. Then in April, our MES Spring. And then again in September with our MES Fall event. Please reach out to us. You can send me a note at adennison@thechannelcompany.com if you're interested in attending these events. We'll get you over to our audience development team. And then again, we launched our IT network, mid-market. I'm sorry, MES IT Leadership Network. If you go to itleadershipnetwork.com. You'll be able to take a look at what we have there, and then again send in an application. It's free to join if you're a qualified IT leader within the mid-market, and we'd be happy to have you there to help stay connected again with folks like Howard, with our content providers, and then with our vendor partners as well. Our next webcast is going to be next month, so we're looking right now at the 3rd Thursday of every month. And security is going to be our focus. We're going to have registration opening up soon for that, and we really hope that you'll be able to come back from January, the holiday break, reinvigorated and ready to join us for a discussion around security in the late January timeframe on January 20th. Howard, there are no more questions that came through here, so I'll go ahead and let you get back to your whether it's your analyst job right now or your day job or a combination of both. But again, thank you so much for taking some time here to talk about low code and sharing your experiences and your stories with our IT leaders.
It's been great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Howard. Thanks, everybody.